Right. Well, I typically start this with asking people their why for competing in HYROX or any sport that they do. Like, what's the motivation for them behind it? And like we were just talking before recording that you've not done a HYROX yet.
Yeah.
I know that's coming up, but what's your why for the other sports that you do? What's your motivation for participating in those?
Oh, well, firstly, thanks for having me, Greg. It's pretty cool to be on this podcast and I know I haven't done one yet, which is very weird for me. I mean, our mission at LSKD is to inspire our community to be 1% better every day. And I think my journey growing up, I raced motocross. I had a big goal to become a professional motocross athlete. Didn't make it, but I was always involved in fitness. My mum was an aerobics instructor. I've always done different events. I've always trained. So when I finished racing motocross in 2010, I kind of went through this period of time of just training in the gym and just typical kind of going to the gym, lifting weights. And I did that for like 7 years. And then in 2018, I actually joined a functional fitness community gym, Fitstop. Well, it was 2017. And then 2018, they hosted a Power Players. And I didn't realize for that like 7 year period, I was missing something and I wasn't a part of anything. And I actually competed in this event they called Power Players, and it was 18 of the gyms. Now they've got about 170 locations, franchises. And we was in South Bank Arena in Brisbane, and it was epic. And it was like, 250 people around. It was just this awesome environment that I got to compete in. And I actually ended up getting second. It was epic. And I was like, wow, I was missing this. Like I was missing kind of from racing motocross and being at the track with all these athletes. I didn't realize I hadn't been a part of something for a very long time. And that was kind of in the transition of LSKD and finding our why. So I then went off and did, a triathlon, a half marathon the following year, and then went off and did three more marathons. And it was interesting because there was nothing really around functional fitness events. And I do a little bit of CrossFit now, but to help with kind of that cross training after running a lot of marathons. But I think my why actually became the purpose of what we do at LSKD, which is 1% better. But I literally, like, if I don't have an event planned, I'm almost not, I don't know, it's this weird thing. I have to have something planned because it gives me that purpose to prepare for it. And I found when I was doing events, like when I did my first marathon in, I think it was 2021, I finished it and I almost had this lull after it. And I was like, if I don't have something planned, I don't keep the momentum going, because it was like you train for this big event. And I realized it wasn't about the event itself. And I'm not an elite athlete. It's actually the journey preparing for the
Mhm.
event. So my
Yeah.
why is almost, not only being a part of the community and 1% better, but it's the journey of preparing for events and the fun of it. And it's enjoying it's don't rush to get to the event, because once you get there, it's done. You're like, oh, I'm all done now. What's next? So I don't know. It's been a long journey, but I just love being a part of things and competing. I mean, I was training this morning before our podcast, and I was like making sure I fit a session in because I won't be able to later. So, because I know I've got three events next year, minimum, like three events signed up already, with Turf Games, HYROX, and then a half marathon. So I kind of, and then we're running 25K on the 1st of January for 2025. So I've got it that as well in a couple of weeks' time.
Nice,
Long
nice.
stuff, but that's my why kind of goes back to, growing up as a kid, being a part of action sports.
Yeah, yeah. And it makes sense to me. Like that's what Hyrox has given so many people, like a reason for the training. That like I've seen people say like it's the sport that you've been training for without really knowing that you've been training for it in a way. Like you've been going to the gym without having this like purpose behind it necessarily. And that's what Hyrox and other competitions have certainly done for a lot of people. So yeah, I completely get that. Um,
Yeah.
you mentioned like LSKD. Can you tell us, high level about what LSKD is about, who you are, and maybe like some of the revenue and staff numbers or whatever you're happy to share?
Yeah, I mean, to go back a little bit, LSKD actually started in 2002. I was actually 13. I was riding BMX, and it actually was a high school nickname. So I got termed the loose kid growing up, which is a little bit crazy to think now every time I say that. But I was riding BMX with some professional BMX athletes, and they were 18 and I was 13, and I was trying to jump a really big jump, and they called me the loose kid. And that's kind of where it started. And what's interesting is the years went on. I became a carpenter. I was racing motocross. 2007 hits. I completed school in 2003, and I ended up deciding I wanted it to be my career. But I was racing bikes, so I ended up becoming a carpenter after a couple of other jobs to finish and did my apprenticeship. And in 2007, I was, so I don't know, I was 19, 20, and decided I wanted it to be my career. And this is pre-social media days, and so it was all around. We were a wholesale business. We were making, we were literally just making product that we could get our hands on, and we created LKI. So it was Loose Kit Industries originally. Fast forward 2010, I went full time. So I left my mum's house where we were shipping orders from her bedroom, and we moved into our first little office. I finished my apprenticeship as a carpenter and started another apprenticeship. And we just made so much product, but we were really involved with athletes from the start with, it was motocross athletes then and a number of different athletes. But I got to surround myself with lots of athletes, including being one myself, but really the professional athletes. So the journey of it, I was making lots of product, and we made a lot of mistakes, to be honest. Like culturally, I did a poor job. We made lots of different products, which wasn't a bad thing because it was a part of my learning experience to where we got to today, and I'm very grateful for that. But that period from 2010 to 2018, that 8-year period, we stopped growing. We were in mainly wholesale accounts with LKI. We didn't really have a purpose. And I really had to start asking myself why, like what am I doing? And when I say that, I suppose full transparency, we were stuck on about $3 million for about 5 years, and which was still good as a young brand, but it just didn't grow. And I was like, what am I doing wrong here? And I started to realize it was me. I wasn't listening to the team. I was, thinking I kind of knew everything, and I definitely didn't. And I did a lot of different, I suppose I kind of went on this journey from 2015 onwards, I suppose, where I did a course called Landmark Forum, which is a 3-day self-development course, and started learning and like what was my why, kind of at that time, not realizing it, and started reading books and just started thinking like, what am I doing? And I'm trying to do it as quick as possible because it is quite a crazy long story. But to give the context, once we transitioned to LSKD, it was really we flipped the whole company on its head and said, let's start from scratch. And we were a team of 12 back then. We're now a team of well over 350, 500 at the moment because we're coming into Christmas peak with our retail stores, but which is crazy to think. So it wasn't that long ago, we're at a team of 12. And at that period of time when we changed it, I was like, let's take our time and rebuild it. And I joined, like I mentioned before, I joined a functional fitness community. I was a part of that. I noticed a lot of athletes within action sports had moved into training in the gym. My good buddy that I raced motocross with actually founded Fit Stop. So, it was just a crossover of what was happening. And we were kind of looking for something because we were always in the gym training with racing. And when we transitioned the company, it was really around creating a purpose around it and saying like, why do we go to work every day? Which is where we created our, mission of inspiring our community to be 1% better in the end. And let's go to work for that first, and let's do that. And then let's create the best, product in the world with fabric, fit, and function, and within the functional fitness community. And, we just started working on the first thing was women's leggings fabric. And we said, can we be best in the world in that? And that was 2018. And we launched our first rep legging in 2019. And that fabric took us about 2 years to develop, and we've been constantly refining it. And now, we create a lot of our own raw materials, and we're just obsessed with trying to create quality of product for the community within functional fitness. And then how do we inspire through our mission and trying to create a culture around that internally, but also to the community and athletes. But yeah, the journey was wild, and I'm very grateful to be in that, to be a part of it, because I did make loads of mistakes. But to give some context where it is today, I mean, in the last 5-6 years, 5 years, I suppose it's gone from 3 to over 100 million now, which is a credit to our team. We opened our first retail store in 2022, which was at our HQ, but our first official store in October 2022 was in Chadstone in Melbourne, not far from where the recent Melbourne HYROX was. And we've now got 17 stores. So it's all happened pretty quickly, but the obsession to learn and then create this kind of omni-channel experience with retail to e-commerce, because we really transitioned from wholesale to purely e-commerce, and then went, hang on, the community can really touch and feel our fabrics, and how do we create this community environment with each location within the fitness community, which when we opened our HQ, you can check it out on lskd.hq on Instagram, but we've got a gym on the rooftop. We've got our retail store where I'm sitting in this room now. I can actually see the retail store in one of our meeting rooms, and the community coming in and shopping. So it's just really like inviting environment, and we host community workouts. Like gyms use our space and they shop. So that led us into saying, wow, well, if we can build this through retail, can we create communities, and yeah, which is one of our values. I mean, it's right behind me in one of our meeting rooms. But yeah, that it is. It's crazy to see how far it's come, and I mean, it's really early days for us, and that ties into, I suppose, where we decided in 2018 we wanted to become a functional fitness brand, which is crazy to see where it's moved to today because like I was talking when I competed in a power plays in 2018, I felt that was, I almost saw that was missing. So to see what HYROX has done is so inspiring. Like it's really cool to give the community something that's so accessible. Like, and it's almost like a marathon because I haven't even competed in one yet. So, but my observation and talking to athletes and, it's like the same thing. So you can constantly improve, but it's really achievable with, I suppose, less injuries potentially.
Mhm.
So getting to doing anything. But yeah, anyway, it's been a crazy journey. Very grateful.
That's amazing, amazing. Like you mentioned community quite a lot there, and I know it's one of your values, and like you say, it's behind you on the wall there. And it feels like that's a great fit to be in the functional fitness community, to be in HYROX, because there are great communities around that as well. Um, like what does community mean to you? How do you work with the community? How have you like built the community around LSKD? How do you think about that? Because it's not
Yeah,
always it's hard to like use that as a value, and it's not like necessarily directly tied to revenue numbers or spend or anything like that. It's a little bit more,
yeah,
whatever the
it's a
word is
great
there.
question. And to be honest, I mean, yeah, and I suppose it's a term that can be easily overused. If I look back on my journey growing up, I remember, back in the, along with LKI and, being in wholesale and going to different trade shows, I remember going to some of these events and there would be like, oh, the punters are about to come along, and so you'd overhear that happening, and I was always like, why do people get called punters, or like, even down to customers? I always found it fascinating. And I always
Mm.
found that really interesting because I was like, I wouldn't like to be called a punter. Like I'm coming to shop at someone's store. And this is over a 15-year journey. And obviously from learning and reading books and all these mistakes, I started to say, well, our customer isn't called the customer. It's actually called the community. Like we say it in retail, our community's coming in, we create that common language throughout the team, through everything we do. So we almost don't like, we don't, I genuinely don't like calling, them customers. I like calling them community because that's, without them,
Yeah,
we don't exist. So that's one thing I think that we've kind of really worked on the last 6 years of kind of changing the language there. And then, I mean, we do so many things. I mean, the team, we did something on the weekend at HYROX where we had the 1% Better Hub, and we had a location, maybe it was maybe about 10-minute walk at a local gym that we worked with. And we had a recovery house. It was epic. And the team organized this recovery house, just it was for the athletes or the community. So we also have a Facebook community group that's over 95,000. What we do in our community experience team, within e-commerce and in stores, we host loads of different events from, recently we just released a campaign called Unapologetically Me. It has nothing to do with sales. It's all about how do we inspire through being 1% better to the community. So yeah, I could name lots of different things that we do,
mm.
but I think the fundamentals of it started at that part of it. And when we talk about our 6 values, it goes back to, which we created as a team. It didn't just come from me. We actually created it in 2020, as we were kind of going and through some different areas. We made some mistakes, and we then used we did an anonymous form as a team to create the values and said, what are your values and what aligns, and all the different books we read. And it was like, well, if we can make decisions on this, it makes things a lot easier. So that, if it's create a community, you make a decision on that when you're thinking within marketing, within product development, within anything you do. So it kind of made it easier to make decisions every day. And as you grow, you can't make every decision because you've got this awesome team. They have to make decisions as well. So the values go back to how we make decisions every single day. I hope that answers it, but
yeah. Can you? I was going to ask you like about the values, the 6 values of the company, and one reason I asked that is like when I was like researching for this, I was thinking about the values, and I was like, well, it's actually like athletes could have 6 values themselves. Like obviously, it's something companies do, and they set themselves values and things like that. But I felt like your values actually like could be for an athlete, a HYROX athlete who's listening to
Yeah.
this. They had a set of values that like they applied to their training, their lifestyle. It would be beneficial for them as well. So yeah, can you just like talk briefly through like the six values for LSKD?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's so true though. I mean, it's like I don't just treat our values as something like for what I do it in my career. We
Mm.
recruit on values. I mean, I make decisions off it in my personal life. Like I go back to 1% better every day. But I mean, our six values are enjoy the journey, create a community, sweep the sheds. There's a better way to do it, find it, move fast and break shit, and 1% better every day. And what was interesting with our values, that and one of our values ended up turning into our mission or our purpose. But when I think about the values, like move fast and break shit, fail forward, dare to think differently, nothing is impossible. When you're making decisions every single day, sometimes you just need to make a decision. Because if you don't, it's worse to not make a decision. So and it's got to be fun, enjoy the journey, have fun, be yourself and embrace diversity. I think that's something that, with enjoying the journey, like I think building a brand or doing anything in your career as an athlete or building, your business or your career or anything you do is actually hard. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail forward. You're going to have setbacks. And I think sometimes enjoying those moments. And I look back when I was racing motocross and I took it so seriously. Like I wanted to be a professional athlete so bad. And I was lucky enough to have sponsors. I never made it as a factory rider. Like I didn't come close, but I just wanted it so bad. I would practice really well and I would show up on race day and I would absolutely I would go well on the first race and the last race of the day I'd brain myself. And I was like, why am I doing this? And it was like I wasn't actually enjoying it. And I remember somebody saying to me, actually, I was traveling with a family, and that actual his son Nathan was 10 at the time. He's now a factory rider. He's a professional athlete, and I remember him saying to me, "You need to lighten up, mate. Like you need to go have fun out there." And I went out and whole shot at that race. It was just so crazy because he's like, he's pretty much telling me, "You need to have fun. You take it too seriously." So I look at enjoy the journey, which was created by the team, as like, well, you've got to take yourself serious and you've got to be super focused and disciplined, but you've also got to have fun and have a joke and know that when you're in the heat of battle, like every single day with what you're doing to show up and do, you've got to have some fun with it. Because if you take yourself too seriously, I think that's where it's
Yeah.
easy to have those, you're going to get setbacks no matter what. So, Sweep the Sheds, that came from the book Legacy. It's an amazing book from the New Zealand. It was about the New Zealand All Blacks. It's no one's too big. No one's bigger than the team and no one's too big to do the small things. I mean, that goes back as small as, we decided, and when we changed the brand in 2018 from all the different books was like, well, actually, why do people get a car park? Like, well, I don't understand. I didn't really understand it because we were never a big brand. And I was like, well, if we ever became something or if it ever really did grow, like no one should get an office and no one should get a car park. Like, I just don't think that really makes sense just because my role as a CEO doesn't mean I should get any extra special treatment in a car park. Like I didn't really understand that. So we just made a decision to say, well, first in best dress. Like if you're there late, you're on the street. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. And so it's like, no one gets it. We don't have offices here and you book a meeting room or you might have to work from home if you need some time to focus. So, and it's no one's bigger than the team. And I think it goes back to that, but there's so many other things within Sweep the Sheds, what we do on a day-to-day basis, I suppose. And it's just the small 1%ers. So yeah, I mean, it's, there's a better way to do it, find it. Like there's always going to be a better way to do it. It's no matter what. So yeah, that's kind of how we think of our values, but you can also look at it from an athlete's perspective. And I think when we even look at working with different athletes, we really want, there's got to be that alignment of values because if you do, you've got that really special connection with the athlete. And I think that it's more than just signing an athlete. It's that connection and how do you support them on their journey and, how do you help them on their journey and think more than just, I suppose, than just being an athlete. We have so many athletes that work here. I mean, Bree that organized our podcast, she was at the Olympics, she made the 100-meter semi-final, the women's semi-final, first female in Australia since the year 2000 to make the semi-final. And she's here part-time working, in PR and helping with running athletes, but also as a professional athlete and signed as LSKD athlete and also is a professional athlete. So she's got it's quite cool and very special to have that here because it's the way we also think with athletes as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a little bit more about how we think about our values. And there's so much, but I could talk about it all day, as you could tell. But
I was going to ask you, funnily enough, about the athletes as well that you're working with, and I know there's a huge list, and that now includes HYROX athletes like Joanna Wettrick, who's going to be a
she was
huge
in the
star in
office
high.
yesterday, actually.
Oh, really? Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
she's a legend.
and we had Ida Matilda Steensgaard as well on the podcast last week, or a few weeks ago actually, and I know she was wearing LSKD in Hong Kong as well. But I went to ask, like, how do you? And there's obviously lots of athletes listening to this, but how do you decide who you are going to work with? Because presumably it's not just how good are they at their sport, and and then you try and sign them up. Like, what are the values that you're looking for in those athletes? Is it just aligned with the six values of LSKD?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I always look at my career, well, my journey and trying to become an athlete, but also the way we look at athletes is similar to the values, but humility is at the forefront as well. I think humility is a big part of it. Like, hungry, humble, smart is something we think about a lot. It's from the book, The Ideal Team Player. And I think when you're working with athletes, it's got to be a two-way. How do you support them? How do they support the brand? And how do you work with them? And we have a great team, our team here, and what Em and our team is doing within athletes within HYROX and Ellie in the US. They're doing an amazing job, but we've really worked hard on, and I wouldn't say we've been perfect. Like, we've made mistakes and over the last 15 years, but yeah, when we work with athletes, it's about the relationship. I think it's not about rushing it. I mean, we've had some amazing opportunities to sign so many different athletes, and there's times we've actually said no. And I think when we decided that we really wanted to focus on athletes' journeys and support them, and how do we story tell them through 1% better, there's a lot of thought process that goes into that, because it's how do you think long term, and how do you find that alignment with athlete and brand, because and it's friendships. You're creating friendships, and some of the athletes I've actually never been able had the chance to meet yet. Like, now it's starting to happen all over the world. It's quite mind blowing for me, but what the team is doing and the conversations we have about athletes all the time, it's I think it's really important, the relationship, not the values alignment. How do you support them? How do you support their journey? How do you help them build their brand? How do you help them sign sponsors? Like, how do you help them get other sponsors? How do how can you find ways? And I always remember growing up that you always saw, when I was racing bikes, I always saw, and I have this kind of example that I've never shared this, but I share it with the team, that we still have our first office at HQ, and I take our new team to our first office and show them how far we've come, and we've got athlete helmets. And I always talk to them about, there's this kind of one story I remember, and there was this one athlete, and he was a legend, but we were all working full-time jobs, and he would win like some serious races, and he couldn't get sponsors. And I remember him saying to me one day, "Man, how do you get so much support? Like, I don't understand. Like, I can't even get a free set of tires." And I was like, "Oh, like, you're a cool guy, but you're probably not humble. You expect everything." And I just remember, and I was like, oh yeah, well, like, how do I get this support? And I didn't grow up with a lot, so I had to find ways to build relationships with sponsors, because I didn't have a lot. I had to work at the local BP, like, gas station, to help buy my first motocross bike. My grandparents went hard and actually split it 50-50 with me. So I really had to work hard to race bikes. I didn't have a lot, and that wasn't a bad thing. It actually made me appreciate it, and I was really lucky for that. But I remember I had the opportunity to do a cover shoot for a magazine, and I remember that I remember calling up the brand Thor, that was the distributor in Australia, and I said, "Hey, I'm actually shooting for a trail bike magazine," because I was friends with the editors, and back then we were putting stickers on helmets to get the brand out there, advertising, and they asked me to shoot the cover on this certain dirt bike, and I said, "Yeah, sure, I'd love to. I can put stickers on my helmet and get the brand out there." And I remember calling up Thor, the distributor, and said, "Hey, I'm doing a cover shoot. Would you like me to wear anything?" And they gave me this gear that was, worth, then was like $600. And I got this gear that no one else had in Australia for the next 5 months, because it was samples. And I remember showing up the train, I was like, "How'd you get that?" And I was like, "Oh, I just did this shoot, and, just asked them if they needed anyone to promote it." And it was like, "Oh, wow, there's a win-win. Like, if I can help them, they're actually going to be able to support me, and I get to do what I love." So I just had this thing that it was like, well, I think it always works that way of how do you support each other? And that was I think that's something I've always thought about was, I don't know where it came from, but if I wanted to race, I had to have sponsors. So I had to find ways to help them first so that they could support me. And I think when I look at that example, I go, well, how do we think that with athletes? Just, it works both ways, but you really want to help them support their journey. But if you find that alignment, it's really special.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I like that. Um, on the sort of topic of athletes, I always like to. I'm always interested in like, do you working with top level athletes in a range of sports? Do you notice any common traits between them? Like, not just the people that you work with, but like, do you see something that's like, yeah, I can see why you're so successful in the sport? Is there anything like that that you see is common between those people?
oh, I mean, their focus and drive and yeah. I've never actually been asked that question really. Like I've never thought about. I mean, elite athletes just have, and every athlete, I think it's that discipline and focus, but understanding and knowing that it's not going to be perfect and knowing on your bad days, that's when it matters the most, when you're training in the gym and you're not feeling 100%, because that would happen more time, it happens a lot. They're the days that makes up for it. And when to rest, when to train, what to eat, how to learn, what you're listening to, what audio books. And that doesn't mean about just being an athlete, but having another focus maybe to take your mind off it as well. Because if you don't, sometimes if you're all in, you can, if you don't have a hobby, like I treat fitness as kind of my hobby as well. Like if fitness helps me be better in my career, I'm just so lucky that it's all kind of together anyway. And where we are in the fitness industry. But if I don't train, I'm not that same person. So yeah, I think I mean yeah, it's quite a special one surrounding yourself with elite athletes that when you get to talk to them, their focus and drive. But I mean, and you have to make decisions based on what's best for your career. You can't go do this because you actually want to achieve this. And I think I look at it as a team here and what we do. We're athletes, we're a team, we're a team sport here and what we do. And we've all got so much to focus on every day, and we have to make decisions based on what's best for our team, what's best for our journey, what's best for as an athlete, I don't, yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. They just have this special thing and they make it look effortless. I love watching elite athletes. Like, God, that looks easy.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
oh, it's just really hard.
yeah.
But you know
How
that they've
about
done the 10,000 hour rule, right? Like they have worked
yeah,
their butts off.
yeah,
Yeah, and when you get to do a workout with them, I think I like learn from them, like I trained with an athlete this morning and she's an elite. We partnered together. She's way stronger than me, this girl Gemma, and she just got back from Dubai and she trains in the same gym I train at. And I'm like watching it all, like, look at that form. It's like you just watch them at the same time.
yeah, yeah. It's the effortlessness that they bring is amazing.
You're like,
Yeah.
God, that looks light. I am not picking that up.
how about yourself? Like you've built this huge brand over a number of years. Like, are there any values that you think you've got that have like particularly contributed towards that success? Maybe that's a hard question for you to answer, but is there anything that you think has contributed?
I don't know. I never thought of it as values. I mean, I genuinely, try and I live and breathe the LSKD values because it's just I think you can't lose that conversation. But I don't know if it's values, but I've always just had this will to learn and I wouldn't say I've always wanted to learn, but I think in the early days I was, I made plenty of mistakes. I was very stubborn, um, and I'm not perfect. But I think this drive to learn and know that it's when I started to realize, and this is not that long ago, that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to
Mhm.
not know everything. Like I think that's a superpower to go, well, you know what? Like I don't know, but now I can learn it. And if I don't know it, who do I surround myself with to learn it? And I'll feel like the dumbest person, but that's also how you get better. And all of a sudden, 6 months later, you're like, oh, wow, that actually got easier. But at the time, it was so hard. Um, and I'm still learning. Like I've never, my role as a CEO, I've never run, a company of this size, and we've got so far to go. So I know that I need to, learn as much as I can and surround myself and have people that have have done it or been a part of that journey. So I'm a big learner. Like I love learning and love understanding, but then also how do I learn from the team? How are they on the learning journey? You know, we're all learning together. Yeah, I've always just grown up being a someone, you know, always looking for mentors, you know, constantly because I think that's how you constantly learn. But in your space, and I think it's like athletes, they have a coach. Like every elite athlete has a coach. I think everyone in what they're doing in their career or you know needs to have some type of coach. And we're big on that here. Like we're really big on how does the team learn from different coaches is in terms of in the industry. I've always been a big believer in that. And we have some amazing people around us that are always kind of guiding us or telling us how to improve or, you know, we don't like being told yes, we like being told, you know, how do we be better? But I've just always thought that way. Can be a bit crazy because I'm like, all right, how do we, you know, how do we get 1% better, you know, all the time? But yeah, I've just always been, I don't know where it came from, but I've just been grateful to have this kind of drive and I suppose energy and focus. But also, I think you know, the humility side has to play forefront to know that you don't know everything as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that, like you said about athletes, you look for people to be humble and like that humility, and like if they've got that, then they're willing to go out and ask the questions and look for the mentors and look for the help rather than thinking that they know it all. So it's kind of similar with
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
Which I got a chance to talk to this like amazing athlete. She is phenomenal. And I chatted to her and I realized she's like a big avid reader. And not just like like business books and like and I was like, wow, that is so cool. Like you know, we're big readers here. And I was just like blown away. And I was like, that is so cool. Like I'm so inspired that this athlete at the top of their game is actually reading books. And they're not just books about other athletes, it's books from business to, you know, there's so many different books. It was just this will to learn. And it's like, okay, that is really cool. Like I was
Mm.
so inspired by that.
I was going to ask you later on about a book recommendations actually, purely because I saw on the LSKD website there's a 1% better bookstore that you've got on there with some recommendations.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if you had one or two recommendations, like bearing in mind the people listening to this, like athletes, people that want to get better. Are there any books that you think are particularly worth reading?
Oh, so many. As you see, there's quite a few on the bookstore, and you know, we actually pay for our team's Audible account as well. So we pay for our team's books to read books, and we have loads of books in our library and more than what's on the website. But I mean, I love books like Unreasonable Hospitality is a great one. Even something can take away, athletes can take away from in their own journey of what they're doing with sponsors and what part of in everyday life and delivering happiness. I it depends. I mean, I like there's a couple of books like there's Relentless, there's Winning, there's those books actually that aren't in our library that was from Michael Jordan's coach. Like I love those books as well. They're epic books. And I sometimes go back and you know, there's Good to Great, there's BE 2.0, the leadership chapter in BE 2.0 is just amazing, which is another book by Jim Collins. But and I will always go back to books. Like some books I've read 10 plus times. Other books I go back and just listen to a chapter if I feel like I need a refresher. Um, all the time. There's so many, and they all just have their little bits of takeaways and gold nuggets. And it's not just books, you know, podcasts as well. You know, I'm always keen to learn and the time I do get early in the morning, I've got a book on. Like I put it on as soon as I wake up in the morning, book or a podcast for at least hopefully 25 minutes. So, and then jump in the ice bath and have it on. So it takes my mind off how cold it is. But yeah, there's so many. And I think it's once you've started that journey of learning, you're searching for more, and then you surround yourself with other teammates that are doing it. They're sharing books, and you know, we have a book club and there's so much out there. The Resilience Project, it's an amazing one. Like I absolutely love that book. It was written by someone in Melbourne. I think that's beeping phone. Yeah, there's so many, so many. I mean, if you jump on the bookstore, there's so many good ones. I could recommend that many, but it depends what you're looking for at what period of time.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk quickly about HYROX as well. Like,
Yeah.
I'm interested in like in someone in your position. What's your perception of HYROX as a business, where it's heading, like, as a brand? Yeah, what's your? And I appreciate that's a bit of an open question, but what's your perception of it?
Oh, Yeah, look, I haven't been to one, as we were saying before, because we had our third. My wife had our third on the week of the Brisbane HYROX, and I was meant to go. I was actually planning on competing in it, but I couldn't go. I was saying my wife was sick, so it was quite worrying because she was sick when our newborn was born, but everything was okay and everything's okay. But I am competing in the Brisbane one next year in March, and I'm doing turf games before that as well. So my perception is epic. Like I'm a big fan. I think it's awesome. Like, and just I train in a I training in a CrossFit gym at the moment, and even the way that the community are thinking, because it's just another sport. I mean, we all saw like Tia and James Newbury competed on the weekend. I was training with James on Tuesday morning. Actually, he put me through a
Nice.
HYROX workout. It was brutal. It was so hot here and humid, but yeah, I think it's awesome. I think it gives the community, and I look at my journey where in 2017, 18, when I joined a functional fitness gym, it was like that was the spot that was missing. Like I just feel like it gives that community, and when I look at it just from I suppose a high level, you get team of four, team of two, and an individual. Like I'm going a team of two because I know with my training, I don't I could do an individual, but I know with a team of two, I can probably have a lot more fun and go hard because the time my partner and I can put into it. And we both work together, so we can really kind of plan our time around, like Kirby and I work together, so we can plan our time to train. And we both have run marathons as well, so it's kind of exciting. But I think it's so cool. Like I think it's such a cool movement. Like, and it gives that, it's that hybrid that we've always thought about with functional fitness, where you got to be strong and lift weights, which is builds good strength for your future and longevity, and then you've got to be able to run, and it just mixes the two together. Like it's such a cool idea. It's crazy to think how far it's come, and I'm a fan. Like I'm a big fan. I'm like, yeah, it's cool.
Good, good. Do you think can you see the sport professionalizing even more than it is now? And like, do you think the media side of that is important to athletes, to brands like yourself, like who presumably want to sponsor athletes in this space? Like, are you looking at the media side of it and thinking that's important?
Yeah, I mean, I do, but I also just look at it from like the athlete's perspective. I look at it from the athlete's perspective and how everyone's feeling that have done it. We've had so many of the team in the office do it, so I talk to all the team about it. Um, can you repeat that question again, just to sort of go off track?
Just your thoughts around like athletes being able to professionalize in the sport, and then like the media side of the sport, like at the elite level. Like, do you feel like the coverage there is going to be important to the success and for the athletes and brands like yourself?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's something I've thought about for the last kind of 12 months, maybe longer, since you've seen the sport really started to grow. And it was something I thought about a while ago. I was like, I wonder if this is the new sport where there's going to be new professional athletes and there's going to help them create a career and be a full-time HYROX athlete. Like it's like, wow, there's this whole new sport coming in. Are they going to be professional HYROX athletes? And are brands like ourselves going to be able to support athletes in that space, which is really cool to think about. So yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's such early days for HYROX. I think, it's really exciting, and I think it's a scalable model. When you look at it, I don't know enough in terms of that. I'm a big fan. I do. I mean, there's so much media out there. Maybe I'm in the funnel, but there's so much media out there what's happening all over the world, and I think it's cool. And I think it just gives. I'm a big fan of, you've got turf games, you've got HYROX, then you've got CrossFit, and then you've got marathons. Like there's just such a crossover of everyone doing different sports, and like and I think that's the coolest part. And then you're going to have the elite level as well. It's because it's all about the community fitness gyms, the community fitness gyms that bring it to life. And there's so many where they can actually then bring their members on the journey, whether they're doing different events. And I think that's really important, no matter what the event. And I think HYROX plays a big part in that. I mean, I know that those type of workouts are happening in gyms that I'm attending and joining in on, or going to. I was just in New Zealand when we opened Takapuna, and it was a Sunday HYROX session. It was raining, so we couldn't run, so we were in the hurt locker doing something else. So like it's kind of cool to be a part of. Like it's yeah, I'm excited. I'm so excited to see where it goes, and I think it's very cool.
Awesome, awesome.
I don't
Do
want
you
to come
think
on too
that?
much because there's things I just don't know what I don't know yet. So
Yeah, yeah, of course, yeah, yeah. Do you think like you've been very much in the CrossFit world, like with the LSKD and the functional fitness world? Do you think there's anything that HYROX can learn from those worlds, like to help contribute towards their success, or do you think they're just like already doing those things? Anything that stands out that maybe they're
um,
not doing?
I mean, it's a great question because when we started LSK, like when we transitioned LSKD, we actually we weren't involved in CrossFit actually. It's only been the last couple of years where we we'd signed CrossFit athletes and really built into the CrossFit community as well within functional fitness. But I don't know. I mean, I don't. I think every brand, like I think of it as like brands. Brands have their communities and how they focus on, you know, who their community is and what they stand for. And whatever sport or discipline, you know, it's with whether it's a marathon, whether it's, you know, high rocks, whether it's turf, whether it's like they have their communities. And I think if you stay true to who you are and what your purpose is, you can really build this strong community and listen to the community. I've you know, it's the same as what we do with as a brand. I think there's so many other amazing brands out there, but I think if you get too fixated on what other brands are doing, you can lose sight of what you stand for and what you are. So I mean, I think I think they're doing a great job. I don't know enough in that space to comment. I haven't been really ingrained in because I haven't, you know, hopefully there's a couple of Brisbane ones next year and I'll do both as well.
Yeah.
And maybe I might get to travel to do some as well because I definitely know I'll do more than one hopefully next year. But yeah, I mean, I think is the main thing is they stay true to who they are within the HYROX community. I think
Okay.
I think with anything though, with anything you do within brands, you know, sports. Um, yeah, I don't see running adding in different obstacles in the run in marathons. That's always been that. So what are they doing to stay that so you can build that consistency? And I think that's the exciting part. And you talk to different athletes and they're like, oh, I really need to shape up my time here. So then they go and focus on, you know, the erg to the run, or like it's like that's the fun part and that's the journey you go on. Like, but all of a sudden it switches. Is that a good thing? I don't know. Like I don't like that's
Yeah,
marathons aren't doing hurdles in a marathon. I don't know.
yeah.
I
um,
don't know. I don't know enough yet.
how about like I mean, obviously Hyrox is growing rapidly, but in terms in your position, like what are you seeing as like trends overall in the fitness industry, and then also trends in terms of like demand for products, like the merch, things like that. Are you seeing certain trends? Anything stand out as being obvious? Like,
Well, I mean, we've you know, we've always been obsessed with how we create the best women's leggings fabric, and that fabric rolls across into bras and tanks, and it kind of, you know, with our rep and Zephyr fabric. So we definitely know that our community are wearing sets, and how do we think about that through all sports that we're doing? And it's the same for our male community as well, and what they're wearing, whether it's through shorts. I mean, we've just launched our new lift short that, you know, with the fabric we've created with that, our Duraflex fabric, um, in there. And we're also working on a hybrid short as well at the moment that we've probably spent about a year and a half on so far. And we launched that early next year. And it's the ultimate kind of run to train short. And we've been working on this for a long time. I've been lucky enough to test it. There's a lined version and unlined. So we're thinking about what are athletes doing, because I think this has been happening for a long time where I put my personal journey has functional fitness to running to doing other things. The last 5, 6 years since I started doing different, like doing functional fitness, I've always been looking for something different and trying new things and then setting a goal and working towards it. And so I think product really ties into that. And that's something we've thought about for the last, you know, 5, 6 years as a brand. And I think now having sports like HYROX has allowed products to come to life more as well.
mhm.
Um, because you're planning it, you fit. I know I am. I'm like, okay, what are we gonna wear? You know, what are we gonna rep at the event? Like, okay, like what are we gonna rep at turf? What are we gonna rep at, like, what are, you know, like what are we repping at HYROX? And I think the community thing, and I like talk to community in the gym and they're like, yeah, I'm thinking this fit. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So it's like, you know, fits and sets that you're thinking
Yeah.
about that you're going to wear to match with your, if you're doing a team event, or even if you're doing an individual, what do you want to wear? So I think that plays a big part in it. And what do we do within product to supply for our community as well, to give them not only the best quality and fit and fabric and function, but that color they might want.
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
know we talk about that in the office of what we want to wear when we're competing.
I've got to say, like you just talked about quality, and you're not paying me to say this, but like I think the quality of the LSKD gear that I've got is really top class. Actually, this like I now
Thank
racing
you.
it. I love it. I think the shorts, the tank tops, the socks. Yeah, I think it is noticeably higher quality. I've got to say, I think it's great.
If you got feedback, you can let us know too.
Okay. There's a few questions I often like to finish up on this pod, and one is like, what's been your best ever sporting experience? And with HYROX still to come, like, yeah, what is it at the moment?
Mine would be running sub 3 hour marathon last
Oh,
year.
nice,
That was
nice.
yeah, I took on I took on Jen and Ryan Gregson. Jen ran the Olympics for the marathon for Australia this year, and they have a coaching business, and I'd done 2 marathons, and I decided at the start of the year last year I'd take them on as a coach, and they were awesome. And I did a 6 month prep to go sub 3. It was a brutal prep. I got sick, I got injured throughout it. Like it was such a journey to get there. And then I ran a 2:59:08, but I literally planned to run just on sub 3 because I had a bit of a calf injury and I was sick on the weekend. And I was like, all right, I just got to get this done. It's been 6 months. So it was a really cool achievement to hit that and hit a sub 3 hour. So that was something, and it was just special. The last 5Ks of that race, I was like, you just got to enjoy this moment because you're going to miss it, as much as you just want to fall over. But yeah, that was something that was very special
That's
because
awesome. That's awesome.
it was a 4 year journey to get there from my first half marathon to kind of 4 years to get to sub 3.
Yeah, yeah. What's what about your toughest sporting experiences? Is it the same like that the last 5K of
Oh,
that marathon or not?
oh, I enjoyed the last 5Ks. I pretty much fell over after. No, I wouldn't say enjoy. I just had to force myself to. Um, I hate getting sick because then I can't train. I absolutely hate that. I don't know if I've like, I mean, there's always been moments where you get injured and you do something and you go, why did I do that? Now I've got a sore neck or a sore back and now I've got
Yeah,
to go
yeah.
get it from my physio. Like, I think they're the little niggles where you do something, go, what? I shouldn't have done that. Like, anyway, move on. But I think I wouldn't say it was the toughest because I absolutely loved it. When I raced motocross, I broke so many bones. Like, I broke collarbone, leg, snapped my wrist, and I've had a plate and screws put in. Don't have a ligament, like my thumb doesn't have a ligament in it anymore from a crash. So I broke lots of bones racing bikes and lots of injuries. So it's kind of cool. This I still get injuries, but not to the level of that. When I was a kid growing up, I'd always show up at work, and when I was an apprentice carpenter, and I'd hold a framing gun with my right arm, and I'd hurt my right arm in an accident racing on the Sunday. So I'd have a sore shoulder, so I'd have to have the other apprentice covering for me because I'd have to use my left arm. So he'd make sure he covered for me because if I had another day off at work, my boss would have killed me. So I was always injured. I don't miss that part.
No, 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 definitely not. And then last question of these set ones, at least, is if you could plant one idea or piece of advice in the mind of everyone listening, and it could be anything, what would it be?
I think the willingness to learn and wanting just to learn. Um, I think what I realized in my career that I wasn't really interested in learning, and then it was around 27 to 2018 when I started to really learn and read books and realize there was so much I don't know what I don't know. And I think that really changed the way I thought and who I surrounded myself with. And yeah, I think the willingness to learn and that can be reading books, it can be listening to podcasts, it can be just doing different things that help you learn to so much out there that it's just you just don't know. Yeah, I think that's played a big part of my career and my journey. I'm very grateful for it.
Okay, love it. All right. Well, thank you for this. It's been fantastic. Is there anything else I should have asked you that you want to talk about? And then also, maybe it's a daft question, but where should people go to find out more about LSKD and you and whatever else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, our website, lskd.co. If you got our Instagram account at LSKD, we also have another channel, LSKD Running. And then we have our LSKD stores, which has our retail stores that we actually do exclusive product in different stores all over, where we have our locations, our HQ channel. Mine is Jason Daniel, but they're the most important ones. If you want to check us out, and always open to learning. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and being on here today. It's been epic, and I can't wait to do a
Appreciate.
high rock and I get to experience it.
Yeah. Hopefully you love it. Yeah. Thank you for this. It's been brilliant, and yeah, talk to you again soon.
Thanks, brother.